For years I kept hearing how ginger was one of those crops that was just too difficult to grow at home, too tropical, too finicky, needed greenhouse conditions. And I believed it for the longest time. Then one day I decided to just give it a shot anyway, and I have to tell you, I was shocked at how straightforward it actually turned out to be. Now I grow it every single year, and I get way more fresh ginger than I could ever buy at the store for a fraction of the cost. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire process of growing ginger from start to finish, covering everything from selecting the right rhizome all the way through harvesting. Plus, stick around to the end, where I'll show you how to keep your ginger going year after year so you never have to buy seed ginger again. Let's get into it. Ginger is one of those crops that seems exotic, but it's actually a lot more forgiving than most people realize. It doesn't need a greenhouse. It doesn't need perfect tropical humidity. What it does need is warmth, shade, and a little bit of patience. And the good news is, even if you're gardening in zones where frost is a real concern, you can absolutely grow ginger in containers and bring it indoors when the weather turns. So let's start by talking about how to select the right ginger to plant. When it comes to selecting ginger for planting, you've got a couple of options. The first option is to head to your local grocery store and pick up some fresh ginger root from the produce section. Now this can work, but there's a catch. A lot of commercial ginger is treated with a growth inhibitor to keep it from sprouting on the shelf. So if you go this route, you want to look for organic ginger, which typically hasn't been treated. Look for pieces that are plump and firm, not shriveled or dried out. And if you can find any that already have little bumps or nubs starting to form at the ends, those are your growth points, and that's exactly what you want. The second option, and honestly the one I prefer, is to order seed ginger from a reputable nursery or garden supplier. This ginger is specifically meant for planting, so it hasn't been treated with anything that's going to prevent it from sprouting. You'll pay a little more, but your success rate is going to be much higher. I've had grocery store ginger sit there and do absolutely nothing for weeks, and I've had seed ginger start pushing out shoots within days. So if you want to give yourself the best chance, go with seed ginger. Whichever route you choose, you want pieces that are at least 2 to 3 inches long, with a couple of visible growth buds on them. Now, before you plant your ginger, you're going to want to give it a head start by sprouting it first. This step isn't absolutely mandatory, but I've found it makes a big difference in how quickly your plants get established. Here's what I do. I take my ginger pieces and I lay them out on a plate or a tray lined with a damp paper towel. Then I cover them loosely with another damp paper towel and set the whole thing somewhere warm. The top of the refrigerator works great for this because it gives off a little bit of heat. You're looking for temperatures around 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Check on them every few days and make sure those paper towels stay moist, but not soaking wet. Within 1 to 3 weeks, you should start to see little green or pinkish shoots emerging from those growth buds. Once those shoots are about ½ an inch to an inch long, your ginger is ready to plant. Now, if you're impatient, like I sometimes am, you can skip this step and plant your ginger pieces directly. But just know it's going to take longer for them to get going, and you won't have that visual confirmation that your rhizomes are actually viable. All right, let's talk about getting your container set up and actually getting this ginger in the ground. Now, ginger has a shallow root system, but the rhizomes like to spread out horizontally, so you want a container that's wide rather than deep. I typically use a container that's at least 12 inches wide and 8 to 10 inches deep. If you want to plant multiple pieces, go wider. A storage tote with drainage holes drilled in the bottom works fantastic for this. Whatever container you use, drainage is critical. Ginger likes consistent moisture, but it absolutely cannot sit in waterlogged soil or it will rot on you. For soil, you want something loose and rich that drains well. I use a mix of good quality potting soil with about 20 to 30% perlite or coarse sand mixed in to improve drainage. Ginger is a heavy feeder, so I also mix in a couple handfuls of compost or some slow-release organic fertilizer right from the start. When you're ready to plant, fill your container most of the way with your soil mix, then lay your sprouted ginger pieces on top with the shoots pointing upward. Space them about 6 to 8 inches apart if you're planting multiples. Then cover them with about 1 to 2 inches of soil. Don't bury them too deep. Ginger rhizomes grow close to the surface, and planting too deep is one of the most common mistakes I see people make. Give it a good watering to settle everything in, and you're off to the races. By the way, if you're finding this helpful so far, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. All right, let's keep going. Now that your ginger is planted, let's talk about ongoing care, because this is where a lot of people run into trouble. The 3 things you need to get right are light, water, and temperature. Let's start with light. Here's something that surprises a lot of folks. Ginger actually prefers partial shade, not full sun. In its native tropical environment, ginger grows on the forest floor under the canopy of larger trees. So if you put it in blazing full sun, especially during the heat of summer, you're going to see the leaves burn and the plants struggle. I keep mine where it gets bright indirect light or morning sun with afternoon shade. A covered porch, a spot under a tree, or even indoors near a bright window all work well. For watering, consistency is key. You want to keep the soil evenly moist, but never soggy. I check mine every couple of days by sticking my finger about an inch into the soil. If it feels dry, I water. If it still feels moist, I leave it alone. During the hottest part of summer, you might be watering every other day. During cooler periods, maybe once a week. The goal is to mimic that humid tropical environment without drowning the roots. Temperature is the other big factor. Ginger loves warmth and will not tolerate frost. It grows best when temperatures are between 70 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Once nighttime temperatures start dropping below 50 degrees, it's time to bring your containers indoors or into a garage or basement where it's protected. The plant will go dormant over winter, which is perfectly normal. Just cut back on watering during this time and let it rest until spring. One more thing on care. Ginger benefits from regular feeding during the growing season. I give mine a dose of balanced liquid fertilizer about once a month from late spring through early fall. This keeps those rhizomes plumping up nicely underground. Let's talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them. First, yellowing leaves. If you notice the leaves starting to turn yellow, especially the lower ones, this is often a sign of overwatering. Check your drainage and let the soil dry out a bit more between waterings. It can also indicate a nutrient deficiency, particularly nitrogen, so if your watering is on point, try giving it a feed. Second, brown leaf tips or edges. This usually means your ginger is getting too much direct sun or the air is too dry. Move it to a shadier spot and consider misting the leaves occasionally if you're in a dry climate. Third, mushy or rotting rhizomes. This is almost always a drainage issue. If the soil stays too wet for too long, the rhizomes will rot. Make sure your container has adequate drainage holes and that your soil mix is loose enough to let excess water escape. If you catch it early, you can sometimes salvage the plant by removing it from the soil, cutting away the rotted portions, letting the cuts dry for a day, and replanting in fresh, well-draining soil. Fourth, no growth or very slow growth. If your ginger just seems to be sitting there doing nothing, it's usually a temperature issue. Ginger needs warmth to grow actively. If temperatures are below 60 degrees, it's going to stall out. Move it somewhere warmer and be patient. Fifth, pests. Ginger is relatively pest-free, but you might occasionally see aphids or spider mites. especially on indoor plants. A strong spray of water will knock most of them off, or you can use an insecticidal soap if the infestation is severe. The good news is, if you follow the steps we've covered, you should be able to avoid most of these issues entirely. Now let's get to the exciting part: harvesting. Ginger typically takes 8 to 10 months to reach full maturity, but here's a little secret. You don't have to wait that long to start enjoying it. You can actually begin harvesting what's called baby ginger after about 4 months. Baby ginger is milder and more tender than mature ginger, with a thinner skin that doesn't even need to be peeled. It's absolutely delicious. To harvest baby ginger, just carefully dig around the edge of the plant and snap off a piece of rhizome, then cover the rest back up and let it keep growing. For mature ginger, you'll know it's ready when the leaves start to yellow and die back in late fall. At that point, you can dump out the whole container, shake off the soil, and harvest the entire clump of rhizomes. You'll be amazed at how much ginger you get from just a few starter pieces. I typically get 2 to 3 pounds of fresh ginger from a single 12-inch container. Once harvested, fresh ginger will keep in the refrigerator for several weeks, or you can freeze it for longer storage. I just throw whole pieces in a freezer bag, and when I need some, I grate it straight from frozen. Works perfectly. Now for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. You never have to buy seed ginger again after your first crop. Here's what I do. When I harvest my mature ginger in the fall, I set aside a few of the healthiest looking rhizomes with plenty of growth buds on them. I let them dry out for a day or two. Then I store them in a paper bag in a cool, dark spot over the winter. Come spring, when temperatures start warming back up, those rhizomes are ready to sprout and plant again. I've been using this method for years now, and each harvest gives me plenty to use in the kitchen, plus enough to replant for the following season. It's essentially a self-perpetuating system. The ginger you grow will actually be better adapted to your specific growing conditions than store-bought seed ginger. So over time, your plants get stronger and more productive. I started with a $10 order of seed ginger 5 years ago, and I haven't spent a penny on ginger since. Between what I use fresh, what I freeze, and what I replant, I've got more ginger than I know what to do with. So that's everything you need to know to grow ginger at home the easy way. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And if you've got any questions or tips of your own about growing ginger, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.